For more on this, I want to bring in Ambassador William Taylor. He was the U.S. ambassador to Ukraine from 2006 to 2009 and acting ambassador from 2019 to 2020. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Ambassador.
Thank you, Vlad. It's good to be here.
So what is the purpose and what is the First Lady trying to achieve with this visit to Washington?
So, Vlad, the First Lady and the President Zelensky, both are leading their nations, and they want to be sure that the rest of the world, in particular the United States and the West, has them in mind, maintains the support. They are very pleased. Both the First Lady and the President Zelensky, are very pleased with the support that they're getting from the United States and from NATO and from the West. They know that this needs to be maintained. They are highlighting the needs that they're experiencing. They're fighting the Russians, and they want to be sure that Europe and the United States continues that support. It's got to be a real effort because it's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult to maintain that support, and that's why she's here.
And then what message does this visit to Washington send to the people of Ukraine?
And Marie, it's a really important message for the people of Ukraine. They watch very carefully. I've got good friends in Ukraine that I'm talking to every day, and they know all of what goes on here. They know the politics. They know that we're watching them. They know the kind of support they're getting from us, and they listen very carefully to what we say, what the president says, what the Congress says, and they are very happy that their First Lady is here speaking to our president and our First Lady and our Congress, and that reassures them that we'll be there to support them.
So a White House official said yesterday that Russia is, quote, laying the groundwork to annex portions of Ukraine. How would that likely play out, and how would that affect the Ukrainian people living in those regions?
Vlad, that's the right question on how it affects the Ukrainian people. And we know how it plays out. We know what they do because this is what the Russians have done since 2014. When they invaded Crimea, part of Ukraine, and they annexed Ukraine, that part of Ukraine. They've also sent their troops into another part of Ukraine called Donbass in the southeast. So we know how they work this. And then they try to assess and assert that they are in charge, that they will be sovereign over that part of Ukraine. And we never recognize that. The United States and the rest of the world, no one recognizes that illegal annexation of Crimea, and no one will recognize the illegal annexation of more of Ukraine. But you asked the right question about how does this affect Ukrainians who live in that part of their country, and they resist. They know what it's like to live in a free country. They've been in free Ukraine, independent Ukraine for the last 30 years. But before that, they were under the control of the Soviets and the Russians and the czars, and they don't want to go back. So it's really, it's existential, Vlad and Marie, for the Ukrainians living in that part of Ukraine.
And despite, sort of still being outnumbered, and despite the support, I mean, the Russian military is still sort of massive compared to Ukraine. Ukrainian forces are having some successes. We've learned about Ukrainian forces striking and damaging a key bridge that Russia uses to bring supplies to troops in the Kherson region. That's in southern Ukraine. Can you give us a sense of just how much of an impact that may have on Russian forces?
An enormous impact, because that is the result of the weapons that the United States and NATO are providing to the Ukrainian military. The Ukrainian military wasn't able to take that kind of action, to have that kind of effect on a very precise target, a very pinpoint target. Now they can, with these new HIMARS, these multiple launch rocket systems that the United States is giving Ukraine, and the Ukrainians are using very effectively. The Ukrainians hope, and they now have the ability to push back on the Russians and to push the Russians back toward the area where they were on the 24th of February when the Russians invaded. So these weapons and this strike on that bridge is an indication that the Ukrainian military has a lot of capability.
All right, Ambassador William Taylor, pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Emery.